Hello, I'm Wendy, and this is another episode of my love story, Love, Loss, and Lipstick. I'm getting ready for work, and I'm going to talk until I'm done, and then we'll continue next week. This is recorded on Facebook, and then I will move it to my YouTube channel because Facebook will delete this after 30 days. That's why if you watch this on YouTube, it's not in the right format. So picking up from last week, Steve and I were in a relationship. We were coming up to the first year of, or the first season of holidays. So November-ish, and yeah, Thanksgiving was coming. Steve's family was from England, and Thanksgiving was not really a holiday that he celebrated in his home growing up, which was a good thing because I would never want to have to split up or decide who we were going to be spending Thanksgiving with, because that is probably my favorite. And we used to have a big family Thanksgiving with all the cousins and grandparents, everybody. My cousins had introduced us. I'm starting to sweat already because I get nervous. My cousins who introduced us obviously already knew him. They were friends. So their mom and dad and sister, you know, they all knew him. And of course, my mom had met him. But there was still some family that hadn't. And this was going to be the first time I was ever bringing a boyfriend to a family holiday. So Thanksgiving was great. And then we were coming up to Hanukkah. And Steve bought me a nice gift. It was a ring, actually, but he knew I would freak out. So before I even opened it, he said, "This is just a gift. It means nothing past that." He said, "I saw it and I really liked it. Thought it was cool. Thought you would like it. And so I bought it, but don't, you know, make it into anything that it's not," which was great. And it was really cool. It was pretty. And then January, well, no, actually, growing up, I always spent Christmas with one of my best friends, Heidi, and her family. So I brought Steve to that. And again, we had a really great time. So that was through the first season of holidays. Next, in January, my birthday, and he told me that, well, you know what? I think I might have skipped a little section. So let me back up. Remember, this is a long time ago. I mentioned, I think last week, that Steve was looking for apartments near where I lived, and I kind of nixed that. I thought him signing a lease for an apartment was like a commitment that I was not ready for, because I said, you know, what if we break up? And then he would be living near me, and that would be awkward. And so I, you know, told him that wasn't a good idea. And that worked out really, really well, because he ended up taking a job with a production company called Primavera Video, only it was down near San Diego. So now he was moving almost 2 hours away in the other direction. But it was good, you know, it was a good opportunity for him, and to be working for a production company was a lot more stable than him just being freelance. And so I was all on board for that. The job was actually Solana Beach, which is not quite to San Diego. So from my house, it was maybe just over an hour and a half. Still, I mean, his mom told me I was GU, and now he was moving way out the other direction. But, so my birthday was rolling around, and he said that he had made plans with some of my friends, and we were going to go to dinner, and we were going to meet at my friend Heidi's house, and she lived down towards San Diego. So when I got off work, I was going to drive down there, and we had plans with my friend Heidi and her husband for dinner, and he was already down that way, so I was going to be driving by myself to meet them. I was going to be 24. My client, probably my last client of the day that day, was a friend. I'm thinking it was a friend of mine's boyfriend, I'm pretty sure. He got a job. He was going to be Prince Charming at Disneyland in Japan. He needed his hair colored blonde, and it was black, was his natural hair color. And so she asked me if I could do that, and I said sure, not realizing I don't think I had ever done a like all over bleach full head of hair like that before, and I didn't realize how long it would take, and I also didn't realize how hard it would be to get him past orange. I couldn't send him to Japan with orange hair. It took hours and hours and hours, and I had a 2-hour drive, almost 2 hours, an hour. Well, from work, it was probably 2 hours because I worked in the opposite direction of where I lived and where I needed to go. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so late. And I let him know, can you change the dinner reservations? I'm running late. And I don't even know what time it was when I left. And his hair, to be honest, his hair looked awful. It really did. I don't remember past what happened. I don't know if he went to Japan with his hair looking like that. I don't know. That was bad. It was bad. But so I take off and I get down there, and all my friends are there. In fact, even my friend and her boyfriend with the orange hair. She didn't tell me. It was a surprise party. Everybody was there. And so I walked in, and I was totally surprised, but I was like, oh my gosh, are we still going to make it to dinner? And Steve's like, when? We're not going to dinner. That was just, that was like the cover up. And I thought, oh my gosh. And the whole time I thought we were going to be late for our reservations, and there were no reservations because the party was my party. So it was very sweet, and we had a great time. And we even had a cake fight, which really caused a terrible mess. I felt bad for my friend, but pretty sure we all helped clean up. So that was for my birthday. And so I used to get together and go see my grandparents pretty regularly. They lived in a town called Monterey Park. It was about 20 or 25 minutes from where I lived. And so I brought Steve with me the first time. And they insisted on taking us out to dinner to their favorite restaurant, which was called Norms. If anybody's familiar with Norms in Monterey Park, I don't know if it's still there. Steve offered to drive, and my grandpa would not hear of it. He insisted on driving. So we get in the back seat of his car. Steve was terrified. He's like, never again, never again. So from that point on, we just always ate dinner at their house. because Steve didn't want to ride with my grandpa. So my grandma knew how much I liked her matzo ball soup. So whenever we were coming over, she would always make soup, which was so sweet. Steve learned really quick that if we were having soup, it meant that we were having boiled chicken for dinner. And so, you know, it is what it is. Grandma's boiled chicken, but the soup was always delicious. If we were going for lunch and we had soup, she would make us like chicken salad if it was lunch, but you really had to watch out for the bones. And it became kind of a inside loving joke with us all the time. I mean, years later, whenever, even if I would make soup, he'd be like, boiled chicken. So we did spend time with my grandparents. So one time we were there, and my grandpa mentioned that he wanted to re-wallpaper the dining room. The dining room was really small. It was like three walls maybe. There was a door on one wall, there was a window on one wall, and then there was no wall. It was open to the family room. So, and it may have only been like halfway up that had wallpaper. And so Steve, like always, you know, offered to help my grandpa. He's like, I bet we could knock it out in a day. It won't take that long. And my grandpa was excited and took him up on his offer. And Steve was like, let's do it today. He goes, we can get this done in no time. And we were there for lunch. So grandpa said, okay. And they were gonna head off to the store and get all the supplies. Steve drove, insisted. They came back, and the first thing Steve started to do was to pull down the paper that was already on the wall. And my grandpa's like, no, we'll paper right over it. And the piece that Steve took off, he could see it was like 6 layers thick. And grandpa's like, no, we don't have to remove it. We'll just put it right over. And Steve did not do any job halfway or less than 100%. So that was really hard for him to not do, you know, a complete, proper paper job. But they did get it done really quick. And it was nice. It was a good deed. It made me happy. It made my grandparents happy. And that was just really sweet of him to do that. So we were all in with the friends and the family. Everybody thought Steve was great. I thought he was great too, but I still wasn't sure. And this new job was challenging our relationship. Being in the entertainment business, I think I said it last week. You're gonna hear me say it a lot if you continue watching these. Being in the entertainment business and then also living so far away was not really a good fit with being in a relationship. And I was just learning how to be in a relationship. But now that he was living down towards San Diego, there'd be times, you know, he'd say, okay, you know, I'm leaving at 5 to drive up to see you, because we could only really see each other on the weekends. And I'm pretty sure, I am 100% sure I was working on Saturdays back then. So a lot of times it would just be, you know, a short visit, especially if I was going there. But he'd say, yeah, I'm gonna leave at 5 to drive up there to come see you. Okay. And then I'm gonna leave by 7. I'll be out by 7 to come see you. I promise I'm gonna be out by 10. And then it would be like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. You know, it's too late. It's not worth it. And I'd get mad. And he'd get mad at me for for getting mad at him because he was working. It just got really frustrating. And there were times too, I would drive down there and he wouldn't even come home until like the middle of the night. And I thought, I could be home going out with my friends instead of sitting in his apartment by myself. So I decided to go out with other people. Not other people. There was one person. I had a client at the salon that I had a little crush on. And he asked me out. And I said, okay. And we went out on a date. I felt bad. I felt guilty. And I mean, and he wasn't as great as I thought. Of course, you know, I had been comparing everybody to Steve from the time that we, you know, after we just met. But I think I went out with him twice. And he actually called me when Steve was over and asked me to go to a concert with him. And I don't even think back then our cell phones, it didn't really, I don't even know if they told us who was calling when the phone would ring. I mean, they were pretty basic. But I thought, okay, this is not good. So I never went out with him again. We went out, I think, like I said, twice. So it wasn't terrible. And we, it's not like we were engaged or anything. Trying to justify going out on a date while I had a boyfriend. But I've been super honest about, you know, where I stood. So next was Valentine's Day was coming up. That was our first Valentine's Day together. And I had made big plans. I just had to make sure that he was there. And I had to grab a different lipstick this week. But I like this color. So that's it for today. Next week is Valentine's, and have a great day. Have a great week. Finishing spray, and I'm finished. Bye.